targeting the digital services. There is a repeal of the digital services tax, which has been replaced with significant economic presence tax. DST, the digital services tax, was at 1.5% currently. The significant economic presence tax applies at 30% on deemed taxable profit of 20%, which when you do the math, it equates to 6% of gross turnover. When you look at that, that is a significant increase, yeah? And considering that Kenya is a fintech hub, you know, in the region, how are we supposed to, you know, support a sector that we expect to contribute hugely to the economy when we are doing this?
Yeah, Betty, you're right, and this again speaks to the concerns that a lot of people have about the policy inconsistency. Because if you look at one of the government in this budget cycle has got about five key pillars that they are focusing on, and one of them is to do with the digital economy, and you know, trying to encourage the digital economy. Now, you then introduce digital services tax, and by the way, this one is also bringing in, is subjecting to tax from a withholding tax perspective, income earned by Kenyans as well, not just non-residents.
Yes.
But now, to your point about significant economic presence tax, it's one of the things that Kenya has been discussing globally, and the world really has been discussing globally, because you see, we're living in a world where probably about 8 or so billion people, the statistics show about 4 billion people are active internet users, and sales by global entities are about 40% of their sales are driven through the internet. So there's a lot of commerce that is happening in this space. And our tax laws, unfortunately, were designed for brick and mortar. You know, the shops where KRA will come in and look at how much sales you've made and assess you. However, for the digital space, KRA will not be able to follow them, and that's the reason why significant economic presence tax is coming in, what they call SEP tax. It's not unique to Kenya. We've had countries like India which have introduced it, which is incidentally at 6%, effective 6%. So you can see where Kenya is borrowing from. Countries like Colombia have got a significant economic presence tax at 3%. So it's not unique to Kenya. Now, the idea here is this. These digital platforms, which have been very broadly defined, including ride-hailing platforms, rental platforms, if you offer professional services, so guys who are on Upwork, for example, and they are rendering their services on this kind of platforms, that the income earned by the platform owners will be subject to tax in Kenya. And now what the proposal is saying, whatever income you earn, we deem 20% of that to be taxable. So if you're talking about a platform, let's say like Amazon, whatever commissions that they earn from people working on that platform or trading on that platform, or even Jumia, if you're talking about now locally, whatever income that they earn from that is going to be subjected to tax. So for people who don't have a registered presence in Kenya, like say Amazon or Google or those kind of guys, we presume that your profit is 20%, and then now we subject it to corporation tax at 30%. That's how you get your 6%. Quite high considering where we're coming from at 1.5%. But you can clearly see government trying to expand its tax take from these services. So it's something that Kenya has been leading from a global front. In fact, Kenya is one of the countries that introduced digital services tax very early on, even before there was a global consensus. And the others were India. Nigeria also has a significant economic presence tax. But one of the challenges that we have with this is there is no threshold. If you go to Nigeria, for example, for you to be taxed on this, you need to earn $65,000 or more. If you go to India, you need to earn the equivalent of about 47 million shillings for you to be taxed. But in Kenya, there's no threshold. So even if you earn $1 million shillings, you'll still be taxed.
Right. Maina?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, on one hand, it's no doubt the world is going towards the digital economy. There's a lot of activities. So one way or the other, there has to be some form of taxation of activities happening in the digital platform. I think my main point and concern is what my colleague Robert has highlighted on some form of threshold, because we have a lot of small players who are still not, you know, the cost of compliance vis-a-vis, you know, how much you are paying there should be a balance. Either whether it's a threshold on in terms of the users, because there are people who are probably not having very many users in Kenya, or from a revenue, at least to make sure that the small players are given room to grow to a level where the cost of complying will not outdo the taxes. So a threshold would do, and then the fact that there will be that tax is okay from looking at what's happening globally, but there should be a form of threshold, and then just to ensure that small players get to a level where they're able to pay and comply.